and welcome to the webinar, Meeting Software Safety Requirements for Medical Devices according to IEC 62304 with Visure Requirements. My name is Fernando Valera. I'm CTO at Visure Solutions, and I will be conducting this webinar. Throughout the webinar, you will be muted, but you will be able to post your questions in the panel at the right-hand side, and we will leave 15 minutes at the end of the session for all your questions. So please feel free to post any comment, any question at the right-hand side. Hopefully, you will be able to hear me loud and clear. If not, just enter a comment, and I'll be able to see that. So today's webinar is about IEC 62304. So that's what we will start with, a general overview of the standard, some related standards to that one, and then how can we support all these activities with Visure Requirements, a single centralized database, and with the report manager to support the risk management and SME activities, as well as the quality analyzer. We will end up with a demo demonstrating all these activities within the tool. So before getting into the standard, I would like to introduce the company for those of you who haven't heard about Visure before. Visure is a company specialized in providing requirements engineering solutions. We have been in providing solutions for more than 15 years already, both in the American market and the European market. We are manufacturers of Visure Requirements, the solution to support our requirement engineering solutions. Our headquarters are located in San Francisco in California, which is where I'm located. And as requirements engineering experts, we need to be able to provide these solutions and be able to be experts ourselves. We are IREP certified provider. That means that we can provide the IREP training. It's the International Requirements Engineering Board, and we are able to certify engineers that have been working in the requirements field for more than 5 years in the CPRE, Certified Professional for Requirements Engineering, in this board. Apart from these offices in San Francisco, we also have offices in London, in Madrid, and in Munich to be able to provide global solutions to our customers. So let's get into the detail of this medical standard. So the FDA published this chart years ago, and one of the first things they figured out was that throughout the past 10 years, the recalls attributable to software failures had actually doubled, which means that they realized that software testing was not enough to guarantee the quality of the software. So it's a no-brainer that they came up with IEC 62304 to guarantee that quality of the software. So this standard is actually specifies the lifecycle requirements for the development of medical software and the software within medical devices. So it's just exclusively a software standard. It defines the different processes, it defines the activities and the tasks necessary to guarantee the quality of a software system. As I mentioned, the FDA, or this standard, is based on the fact that quality cannot be provided just by testing. We will see throughout the webinar that one of the key aspects is making focus on the requirements and the traceability to guarantee the quality. The interesting thing is that the standard does not prescribe any methodology or work product. It's just it's a prescriptive in the sense on what needs what needs to be provided, and the how is open in terms of methodology. So you can implement different methodologies as long as you are able to demonstrate compliance to the standard. It is a voluntary standard, meaning that it's not mandatory to comply with it, even though by the fact that it's mandatory in the sense that demonstrating an equivalent software development process might turn out to be more costly than implementing 62304 straight away. So, so reinventing the wheel is not a good idea. So typically it is suggested to go straight for the 62304 as it is a normative standard. It will be considered as following the process generates a valuable artifact, which will be immediately certifiable for the CE in the US, in Europe, and an FDA approval. Most of you will have actually seen this table, and it's in the Annex C1 in the standard. It demonstrates or it highlights the relationships between the different standards and those that apply to 62304. The most interesting thing is that here we've got 62304 at the bottom left corner with a assumption that some standards have been followed, and that's 13485 for quality management system and ISO 14971 for the risk management. So we will have to implement these processes as a premise for 62304. So we will see that it adds some aspects to these two processes, and we will take a look at it afterwards. We've got another one at the top right corner, which is the 6601-1, which is medical electrical equipment safety or medical electrical equipment requirements. So let's actually take a closer look at this standard. So 6601-1 explains the requirements for basic safety and essential performance in programmable electrical medical systems, the PEMS. At this point, I would like to remember that you can post your questions in the Q&A panel that you will find at the right-hand side, and we will leave some time for a Q&A at the end of the session. So going back to the slide, what is PEMS? What is a PEMS? Well, it's a programmable electrical medical system. So those of you who are developing hardware, not exclusively software, you will be familiar with this standard. And what it says is that a PEM can be composed of software, and therefore it falls under this standard also. So if we take a look at clause 14, which is the only one that actually talks about software, it mentions that risk management should be conducted, and it describes in a very high level the development process of that software development process. The interesting thing is that before 62304, that was the only reference to software development process in the medical device industry. The FDA found out that it was not enough to guarantee the quality of the software, and it created the Amendment 1, which created a normative reference to 62304, making it mandatory to comply with this standard if your medical device contains some software in it. So when do we need to apply this standard? So basically, if our medical device contains software, and that software affects the essential performance of the system, or the basic or the basic safety of the system, or if we conduct a risk analysis and the failure of that software may result in an unacceptable risk, then we need to comply with 62304. Good. So let's go back to the standard and let's take a look at the different processes mandated by the standard. So we will make some focus on some of them, and like software safety classification, the development process, the risk management process, and the problem resolution. So this standard introduced some new key concepts. The first one was the software safety classification. So this means that the software should be classified into different classes according to the risk. The software before the standard was considered as a black box, but now the software could be decomposed into different software units, and each one of the software units can actually be classified in different classes. So the default class is C, and what does that mean? Let's take a look at the different safety classifications. This classifications can actually be done at different software units and are divided into 3 different types. The class A means that no injury or damage is done to the patient. Class B indicates that non-serious injury is possible, like burn or similar. And the class C can result in death or serious injury to the patient. So every software unit should be considered by default a class C, unless we're able to demonstrate that the risk of the failure of the software does not result in any of the previous classes. So depending on the class under which the software unit falls, we will need to comply to the different clauses in the standard. So as you can see, the class C is the more stringent one, whereas the class A needs to comply with some basic aspects that have to do mainly with the software development plan, the software requirements specification, and the documentation of them, and the implementation and verification of software units, the release, maintenance, and risk management process. In terms of the different clauses that we highlighted at the beginning, the first one, the software development process, adds to some new concepts, like the SOAP, which stands for software of unknown provenance or pedigree. So that is software that the standard doesn't, or we don't know where it comes from. We should consider that software as a risk, and we should not demonstrate the development of that process, but consider from a risk management point of view. The software development process adds also many clauses in terms of traceability between the artifacts, between the requirements, test cases, and the content of the software requirements specifications. Apart from that, we've got some aspects on the configuration and the change management, the integration planning, integration testing, and the software release. I would like to remember you that you can put your comments in the panel at the right-hand side. We will leave 15 minutes at the end of the session for all the Q&A. So clause 7 talks about software risk management. So we saw at the beginning that 62304 requires ISO 14971. But on top of these standards for risk management, 62304 includes the SOAP as part of the risk management activities, as we mentioned previously, but also it mandates to establish the traceability between the risks and the corresponding artifact, like the requirements. So this is something which was not there before. So as we can see by now, the traceability will play a key role in complying with this standard, the traceability between requirements and test cases, as well as the requirements and the risks. In terms of risk management, there are a number of techniques available, like FMEA, SUMICA, FTA checklists. There are a number of them. I'll just explain one of them, for instance, the FMEA, which stands for Failure Modes and Effects Analysis. So this risk management method consists of identifying the different risks that come out of failure of the software. We analyze the risk by establishing the severity of the failure of the software, the probability of that hazard happening, actually the risk, the occurrence, and the probability of detecting that that failure. The result is the calculated risk priority number, or RPN, just multiplying severity, the occurrence, and detection, which FMEA defines in different categories. And depending on the result of that multiplication, we will identify or we will classify that risk as acceptable, unacceptable, or to be investigated risk. So after calculating this RPN, we need to establish a risk control and mitigation actions to be able to drive the unacceptable risks to an acceptable status, and then monitor and review that mitigation action. Finally, the clause 9 of 62304, the software problem resolution, basically talks about defect management, and one of the things that FDA highlighted was that 79% of the software failures had actually been introduced when changes were done to the software. That means that we are able to create a first version of a software, but typically errors happen when we create a second version. This means that FDA in the 62304 establishes some processes that go beyond the product release and actually talks about the maintenance of the software. So in this case, the problem resolution, detect the errors, the defects, basically categorize them, review them with the corresponding teams, analyze the problems, and create the corresponding requirements out of them. So that was a very brief overview of the standard. Hopefully it clarified a little bit on the different clauses and aspects, and when we need to comply with 62304 and when we do not need to comply. So I will go on and introduce Visure Requirements, and then we will see a demo of the tool. As I mentioned previously, you have the Q&A panel at the right-hand side. Please feel free to post any comments in there. So Visure Requirements is the platform that will help us ease the compliance with this standard. This platform is unique in 3 aspects. The first one, the fact that we are able to map the process within the product. We are not a document-oriented tool where you just open and start creating requirements and specifications, but actually we try to help follow the process instead of being a burden in the process. And this is done in a graphical way, indicating the different steps of the software development process and providing different views to the users, which takes me to the second point, the collaboration. So we can define different roles in the organization. Each one of the roles will have different actions and capabilities within the product, helping the review of the artifacts and helping in the development process. And the third aspect is the quality. If we only have the first two aspects, we would only have a management product understood as having inputs and outputs with the same quality. Our aim is to be able to provide better outcomes and be able to process the information and help write better requirements. We will see later what we call the quality analyzer that helps write good requirements. So when we refer to the document-oriented approach, what do we mean? Well, the traditional way of managing requirements has been in a specification orientation, which is basically creating folders, creating specs in there, meaning that a requirement belongs only to one spec. In a similar way as we did with the music. We just created different genres, we created different decades, we created a folder, and there we put all the album information. Right now, today, we have a huge load of information, and this document orientation is no longer valid. Why? Basically because we no longer have one system. We typically have variants. We have the same safety requirements applying to different systems. We have different ongoing releases at the same time. So requirements are not static elements. When we need to release or we need to solve an issue, we need to solve it at the same time in different places in the database. That's why the information-oriented approach nowadays has been becoming more and more popular. For instance, the iTunes no longer provides a folder approach, but you can actually browse through the albums in a more dynamic way. The same applies to Gmail, and the same applies to Visure Requirements. So Visure Requirements has this information-centric approach, allowing us to have one requirement allocated to several specifications and be able to do a database search, be able to find all the safety requirements, and be able to manage the requirements in a more efficient way. To be able to do this, we provide what we call the block diagrams, and this is just an example of what we provide inside Visure, where we have the different specs represented by the boxes and the traceability, the allowed traceability as different lines in the diagram. So this will allow us to not only guarantee and enforce a process, but guarantee the consistency of the information. And at the end of the day, it will ease the compliance just by making sure that whatever our users are doing is compliant with what we said we were going to do. These diagrams will also help us to follow the process in other tools by the integrations. So we spoke previously about the problem resolution. We spoke about the configuration management. So these processes need to be supported by not only a requirements management tool like Visure Requirements, but also bug tracking tools like Jira, by configuration management tools like Git or Subversion, whatever. and we need to integrate Visure with those tools. So we can select any of the boxes, any of the element types inside Visure, like the defects, like issues, and synchronize the information between Visure and Jira to be able to follow the process. We can also integrate with PFS, for instance, for the tasks, and so on. So these diagrams will actually help us draw the process diagram and be able to guarantee that our users are following it. Another activity that these diagrams can actually support is the risk management by defining the risks, how they interact with the requirements, and how the mitigation actions are built on top of those risks. We will see that in the product in a couple of seconds. So let's move on to Visure Requirements, and let's take a look at the product. So if you have any questions at this point, please feel free to post it in the panel on the right-hand side. We've got a question about the slides. Will the slides be available? We will make available the recording of the webinar. So you will receive a follow-up email with the link to the record. Good. So let's open Visure Requirements. I'll open this surgical imaging project and go through some of the aspects we have seen in the slides. So this is Visure Requirements. This is just one of the specifications, the component requirement specification. I will come back to this view. But before that, I wanted to show you the different diagrams we spoke about a couple of seconds ago. These diagrams are called the block diagrams, as we call them in Visure, and represent the different points of view of the database. This is a pretty unique capability inside Visure. No other tool in the market provides this level of flexibility to represent whatever process we want to represent inside the tool. And one of the first aspects we saw when talking about 62304 is the fact that the standard does not prescribe any specific methodology. Therefore, we can actually follow a V-lifecycle, and I'll open this diagram by representing user requirements, system requirements, and component requirements with corresponding test cases in here as an example. But we would be able to follow any other methodology, let's say an agile software development process by representing the product backlog through the epics, the user stories representing the tasks, the different sprints. As long as we are able to demonstrate the compliance to the different processes in there and demonstrate the traceability of the artifacts between requirements, between test cases, and between the risks, and be able to generate the corresponding documentation. So whatever process we are following, we need to demonstrate and provide that capability. So apart from representing this to life cycles, and we will see how those elements actually map to the tool, we can also represent the rest of the processes that we mentioned during the slides, such as the problem solving and defect tracking, where we have the requirements, whether they are the user, system, component requirements, software, the hardware, the mechanical, and we have the defects coming out of the test cases. So here we have the issues that can be created inside Visure or can be synchronized with a third-party tool like Jira. And this can be tracked to a problem report, which can be tracked to a change request, which can be ultimately traced to new requirements or can generate new requirements. So at this point, these diagrams are just defining the different artifacts we will have in the database and the allowed traceability. This means that only the traceability defined in these diagrams will be possible in the product. And also, one of the other processes absolutely key in the standard is the risk management process, the generation of the hazards, and the traceability to the requirements. So this diagram in here is actually defining those element types and the traceability between them. So we have seen that we can have the software development process in there. Actually, we can represent different methodologies. We can represent even a hybrid process between a V lifecycle and an agile lifecycle. We can represent the defect tracking. We can represent the test management process and the risk management process. We can either support it natively in the tool, but we can also support it through the integration with other tools. So how do the different processes work? Let's take a look at, first of all, the V lifecycle, where we have the user requirements, we have the system requirements, and we have the component requirements. The component requirements we can see in here that are composed of mechanical, electrical, and software requirements. So let's follow this process first of all. So we go to the views, and we select the user requirement specification. So here we see the different elements contained in the specification we were talking about. Apart from the user requirement specification, we can also go to the system requirement specification, where we will be able to see the system requirements, or we can even go to the component requirements document. And as we saw in the diagram, composed of mechanical, electrical, and software requirements. So all of these specifications are automatically generated out of the diagrams we have defined. So we create the diagrams, and the whole process and all the artifacts are generated automatically for us. So let's go back to the user requirement specification, and let's take a look at the artifacts themselves. What can we do with the artifacts? So here we've got this specification. We've got this requirement in here. The first thing is that we can define different attributes on top of the requirements, like the priority. If I double-click on the status and being able to review the artifact is one of the key aspects also in the standard. We can transition this requirement from ready for review to reviewed. If we double-click in here, we can transition this one to approved. What does this mean? This means that we can define and follow a workflow on top of the requirements. So let's take a look at the different workflows. So workflows are a review and approval capabilities that are completely customizable, can be established on top of the requirements, on top of the defects, on top of the risks, and allows us to define this review process. We can not only define the different statuses over which the elements will go through, but we can also define the roles and the user groups that will be able to transition that element from one state to the other. Let's go back to the user requirement specification. And what we can see is that apart from being able to establish different attributes on top of the requirement, we can define an RTF description for each one of the requirements. So for instance, this requirement contains a table with different values, And let's just make a slight modification to this description. So let's go to the Properties tab, and let's take a look at the versions. Each one of the elements inside Visure Requirement has an individual configuration management capability, indicating that each requirement has a complete history so that we can track who made what, when, what was modified, what was changed, when, and be able to comply with the configuration management. On top of that, we have a specification configuration management, or what we call a baseline, so that we can create different versions of a document. We can compare the different versions, and we can export it to send to Subversion or Git or whatever. So in this versions tab, in the history, we see that some changes were made to the requirement. So let's take a look at the changes. What we see is that the priority and the status changed. Then we also see that the description changed. So let's highlight those changes. And what we will see is that we have several changes throughout the table in here. We can navigate through those changes and find out exactly what was changed so that we do not miss any of those changes. So for instance, this is the latest change I did, which is being highlighted in here so that we don't miss anything. Good, good. Let's close this. Perfect. Good. So this is one of the views that we provide on top of the requirements, which is displaying the specification. But another way of displaying the information is through the traceability. And we said that traceability is one of the key aspects. So how do we trace elements? Again, through the Properties tab, through the Related Items tab, we simply need to select the specification we want to trace this requirement to. Let's say that we want to trace this element to system requirement. We simply need to select the elements we want to trace it to and click on that button, and that'll be it. So now this user requirement is traced to a system requirement. So this is how we establish traceability. And this traceability, as we mentioned earlier, has to follow the traceability policy we defined in the diagrams. So let's analyze this traceability. So let's analyze this impact analysis of the requirements. And for this purpose, we have another view, which is completely different to the specification view. This traceability view displays all the high-level requirements, in this case, the user requirements. And if we expand these user requirements, what we will see is the traceability to the second level, which is the system requirements. If we expand the system requirements, we will go to the third level, which are the component requirements. Those are software, hardware, or mechanical, and then we will be able to see the traceability to the test cases and to the execution of those test cases. Everything in one single view. So the same way that we're visualizing this information in a V lifecycle, we can also show it in the agile approach. In here, in this view, we are showing the traceability between the epics, between the user stories, and between the tasks. So whatever methodology we are following, we have to document it, and we will so that we will be able to report on that afterwards. If you have any question, please don't hesitate to include in the Q&A panel at the right-hand side. Perfect. Let's go to the risk management process, and we will afterwards go to the quality analysis, and I will finish with the generation of reports to be able to demonstrate compliance to the process. So the risk management process has been defined in one of the diagrams, and therefore we have a specific view where we will be able to create risks or hazards, and we will be able to establish mitigation actions on top of it. So this view is displaying all these hazards along with the different attributes we define to establish, like the severity, the occurrence, and detection. In the case of FMEA, if we're following MICA, we can just select any attributes we want to be able to calculate the RPN automatically. So based on the calculation of the RPN, what we find in here, the right-hand side, is the risk level, which is calculated automatically. So what we see is that between 0 and 40, the risk is an acceptable risk. Between 40 and 80, the risk is optional. It needs to be investigated. And beyond 80, it's an unacceptable risk that we need to mitigate somehow. And here we have the traceability to mitigation action that drives the hazard to an acceptable level. We will be able to generate the corresponding reports out of this to demonstrate that all risks have been, all the elements have been traced to requirements. That all hazards have been traced to requirements, that they have been mitigated, and so on. Okay, let me just finish with the quality analyzer and show you the how we deal with the quality of the different assets in the database. The quality analyzer is a unique capability inside Visure that allows reading requirements and highlighting low quality aspects in the description of all requirements. So if we are having ambiguous terms, if we are having acronyms that have not been defined in the glossary of terms, if we have incorrect verb tense, if we are writing actually two contradicting requirements within the same spec, the quality analyzer will detect those low quality aspects. So let's take a look at this analysis. Okay. So this requirement in here is highlighted as being a low quality requirement, and hopefully we'll get the corresponding result. Let's just generate it again and find out why that requirement has a low quality aspect. Let's select the project. After selecting the project, we will select the specification we want to evaluate. This will give us the complete list of requirements with the quality analysis, and then we can go into the detail to see exactly what makes them low quality. Okay, so let's select, for instance, the user requirements. let's select any of the low quality requirements, and this will calculate on the fly the quality of that specific requirement. While this quality is being calculated, and I'll come back to the to this tool, let's take a look at the reporting of the different aspects. Let's generate a full traceability report of the different aspects or the different elements that we generated throughout the process. Okay, so the project we're taking a look at today and the reports I'll be generating, they come in a bundle, which is the IEC 62304 project template. So this is something you can evaluate on demand and start using straight away. It can be used as a starting point and then refined to meet your own software development process. But it has been demonstrated that it's a good kickstart to get started in the standard. So let's generate a report with the system requirements, with the component requirements, and the risks. So I have selected this element here, and we have this report. This is just an example report that we can tailor to include our logo or include any other aspect that we want, like attributes and requirement descriptions and so on. What we have in here is the system requirement with the traceability to the component requirements, to the traceability to the different risks in the project. So here we see all that traceability between the different artifacts in the project. So once we generate these reports, we can generate PDF files, we can generate HTML, RTF, any type of output format. Let's select PDF. Let's place it in the desktop. Traceability report. Okay, so here we have this traceability report. One of the things we will need to do while generating the reports and the traceability reports is making sure that we are actually complying with the traceability policy. So we can generate things like items covered by tasks report to find out which requirements have not been traced yet, or for instance, items covered by problems, any type of coverage reporting. We can also generate risk analysis reports to be able to find which risks or which hazards are traced to which requirements, which mitigation actions, and how they are covered with the test cases. Let's just select this one, generate, and this is what we get. A risk analysis dashboard with the traceability between risks, requirements, and test cases, and the corresponding mitigation actions. So these reports can be generated also in batch mode, so we don't have to generate them on demand. So we can have them traced or generated every day. So from FMEA. And this is what we get. The traceability report in HTML. Just to finish off, I mentioned the quality analysis. So here we have the result of the quality analysis for this requirement. So let's take a look at the result. It says that this requirement contains 3 ambiguous sentences. So if we click in here, we have the first one. It is normally necessary to provide at least based on. So we have all these items in there. Speculative sentences. It is normally necessary. Perception can provide. Imprecise quantifiers. Vary. So those are low quality aspects that we have to be careful with. So the quality analyzer will raise a red flag so that we will be able to analyze it afterwards. So let's go back to presentation, and I'll leave 10 minutes for Q&A. So just as a summary, 62304 is a set of processes, of activities, and tasks which are very, very related to the requirements and the traceability. Visure requirements and the 62304 template can ease the compliance with this standard by providing predefined element types like user, system, hardware, software, mechanical requirements, problem reports, risks, and suggested traceability policy, as well as the corresponding mechanism to create those elements and be able to report them accordingly to be able to demonstrate compliance with the standard. Along with this template, we also provide the traceability to other tools and the integration with other tools to be able to complete and have a 360 compliance to the standard. So I hope you found the presentation interesting and useful, and I'll leave some time for the Q&A. So you have the panel at the right-hand side. So we have a question on the integration. So you mentioned that you have integration with Jira. How does it work? Well, the integration with Jira is provided in 2 different ways. The first one is the capability to synchronize elements between both tools. So we can configure it to take elements from Visure to Jira, or from Jira to Visure, or actually bi-directional. So we can take elements from Visure to Jira, and if the workflow is updated inside Jira, take it back into Visure. The same way, we have another integration that allows us to perform change management on top of Visure requirements through Jira in a pretty similar way in which the Jira Subversion integration works. That means that we can trace specific versions of requirements to specific issues inside Jira, so that for each one of the versions inside Visure requirements, we can identify the issue related to that change. If you are interested in a demo, please feel free to contact us, and we will be glad to arrange a demo for that. We have another question. Is the tool Part 11 electronic signatures supported? That's a very good question. So 21 Part 11 talks about electronic signature. We provide a baseline mechanism that allows us to version the specifications, and we can define electronic signatures on top of those baselines. So at the moment of the creation, we create or we select the users that need to approve, review those baselines. Whenever they get into the tool, they receive a notification that there is a baseline that they need to review. They go through it and they electronically sign. So Visure does help in the or does support this process and the electronic signature of file. We have another question here. Where is the data repository stored? Is it on the PC, or is it on a service within the company or a cloud? So Visure provides an enterprise architecture so that the database behind can be installed anywhere in the company. Typically, our customers prefer on-premise rather than cloud versions because of most of the companies would rather have their IP on-premise than somewhere else. So you can define, or you can establish you can install the database anywhere in the company, and then all the clients will actually access the same database. So everybody will be accessing the latest information always. There's another question. Is the tool qualifiable? I guess you referred to the fact that to be able to use a set of tools to comply with 62304, we need to qualify the different tools we use for that. Visure provides the services necessary to be able to qualify the tool. The tool has been qualified in the past, and it can be qualified to meet the 62304. So the answer is yes, it is qualifiable. We have another question. Does the tool have a fault-free capability? So it does not provide a fault-free capability. It does provide FMEA, FMICA capabilities for the risk management. Those are, as of today, the capabilities we are providing. It would be pretty straightforward to extend it to provide a fault-free, but that is not provided in the standard template for IEC 62304. We still have time for a last question. You haven't spoken about reusability. Does it support variance in the reusability between the different products? So the answer is yes. We provide the capability to reuse requirements and specifications across the company. So we can create a set of basic requirements, safety requirements, performance requirements that we can reuse consistently throughout the different products. We can not only reuse requirements in that sense, but we can also create a variance out of a basic product. So we can create a product and branch it to meet different requirements. And then, if necessary, merge it back to the original branch in a semi-automatic way, where we will be able to transition to the main branch. So it's already 1 hour. Thank you very much for your time. Please get in contact with us if you have any question. We will be more than glad to prepare a customized demo for you with your own requirements, with your own process to solve your specific needs. And please get in contact with us for the if you're interested in the 62304 template. Thank you very much, and hope it was useful. Goodbye.